Hello guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Treasure Peter. On this channel I share sewing tutorials, and on today's tutorial I'll be making this beautiful blouse worn by Aisy. I wanted my own hip to be more exaggerated, that is why I achieved this, but if you do not want yours, I'm going to also show you a way to go about it. Do well to watch the end if it's something you're interested in. Thank you. Thank you for staying tuned. So to make this blouse, I'll be making use of this 2 yards of crepe fabric. It's a bit stretchy. I'll be drafting it on my pattern paper before transferring it to my fabric. So to draft the front part, I went ahead to fold my pattern paper into two. Make sure you fold it into two, do not keep it once. And then for the width, go ahead to fold it with your hip circumference divided by 4 plus additional 4 inches allowance. So the first thing I did was to draw out my starting line. This is also going to serve as the shoulder line. And from the shoulder line, go ahead to take the length of your blouse. My blouse length was 25 inches, but I made use of 24 inches because that is where the pattern paper ends. If yours is not enough, you can still attach it, but for mine, I'm going to be increasing it when I'm cutting it on my fabric. So right now we'll be taking our vertical measurements. The first thing is the shoulder to bust point. I went ahead to mark it, and then I marked the shoulder to my under bust point, and also went ahead to mark the shoulder to my half length, which will also serve as my waistline for this blouse. So I went ahead to draw them across to form horizontal lines. So just go ahead to do the same thing. I'm taking time to do this explanation for beginner's sake. And if you're a beginner and you do not know how to take all these body measurements, I'm going to drop the link to the video I did on my description box below, so you go ahead to check it out. So guys, for the end of the blouse, I'm going to be using it as my hip line because that is actually where the length of my blouse stops. It stops around the hip line. So I went ahead to label them bust point, under bust, half length or waistline, and the hip line, and then the shoulder line. So the next thing I'm proceeding to take is the shoulder divided by 2. So from this center point, I went ahead to measure my shoulder measurements divided by 2 at 7 inches because it's actually 14 inches. At that center point, I also went ahead to mark the neck width of 3 inches and the neck depth of 3 inches. You can actually use 3.5 by 3.5 if you're in bigger size. Then I went ahead to draw out the neckline. At the shoulder point, come down by 1 inch for your shoulder slant and then connect it back to the neck width. From the shoulder slant, take out your chest line by measuring your bust circumference divided by 6 plus 1.5. You can just go ahead to mark what you have, but in case you do not want to go through the stress of doing all those calculations, you can start your measurements from the beginning line and just take 8 inches or 8.5 or 9 inches for your chest line, depending on your bust measurement. After marking mine, I'm going ahead to measure my shoulder measurements around that line. So I'll just go ahead to connect that shoulder measurement to the shoulder slant, and then I'll just go ahead to connect the line to form the chest line and also label it. From the shoulder line, go ahead to lay the midpoint from the shoulder line to the chest line. Mark what you have, and that midpoint go in by ½ inch. And then at the chest line, go ahead to measure your bust circumference divided by 4, whatever you have, go ahead to mark it. And then I'm going to be using my armhole curve to connect these 3 lines together to form the armhole. So just watch how I'm connecting it, especially if you're a beginner. So guys, right now we'll be taking the princess dart bustier for this top. In order to do that, the first thing I'm taking is the nipple to nipple measurement divided by 2. So on the length of the blouse, go ahead to mark yours. For mine, I marked what I have, and then mark it also on your half length under bust as well as the bust point. So guys, after that, just go ahead to draw a straight line to connect the lines together. At this point, I didn't add my joining allowance at the nipple to nipple. I just marked exactly what my nipple to nipple is. And then after that, go ahead to take out your dart for the bustier. Because this is a corporate blouse, I'll be using 1 inch at the side for the dart. Usually I use 1.5 inch, but because I won't be padding it, so I'm not going to be using a warden, so 1 inch is okay. I went ahead to mark the 1 inch at the half length, the underbust, as well as the length of the top, and I connected it like this. And then at the inner side, I'm going to be going in by ½ inch, and I'm going to also connect it from the underbust, the waistline, as well as the top length. After that, you just go ahead to use your curved ruler to just connect it from the underbust to the bust point. Even if you don't have this armhole curve, you can as well use your free hand to connect it. So I went ahead to do the same thing to this other side. And then I had to mark out this part to show you guys that we are going to be cutting out this part. Right now we'll be working on the princess dart areas. To do that, from the shoulder slant, I'm going to be measuring around the armhole, and I'll be marking it at 4.5 inches. You can as well go ahead to measure round to see what you get and divide yours into 2. But I decided to make use of 4.5 inches, and then I connected it back to the bust points like this. And then I had to go up again by ½ inch and come down by ½ inch in order to take out the darts. I connected it towards the line like this, so just watch what I'm doing and go ahead to do the same thing. The next thing you go ahead to do is to extend it upwards in a slant form, the downside with 1 inch. After extending it, you need to also extend your chest line with that same 1 inch, and then you're going to connect a new armhole at that point. Then I went ahead to just mark out these points because I'm going to be cutting it out. So guys, now we'll be taking around body measurement. We've already taken the bust measurement, so the only thing I'm going to do is to add more allowance to the bust measurement. And then on the waistline, I'll be taking my waist measurements divided by 4. I'm replacing this dart. This is about 1.5 inch, and then I'm adding my seam allowance at once. I'm going to be adding the seam allowance also at the bust measurement. Then I'll go ahead to connect it from the bust to the waist. Then at the length of the top, I'll be using it to take the hip measurements divided by 4. I marked what I had, and then I'm replacing the dart also of 1.5 inches, and then I added my seam allowance of 1.5 inch and then connected it to the waistline. So guys, at this point, in order to take this illusion hip line, I'm going to be going up by 2 inches. So at this point, I'm just assuming this is the actual full length of this top. So I marked 2 inches, and then I'm going to go out by 2 inches at that point. So also go ahead to do the same thing, and then I'm going to connect it back towards the waistline. So I'll go ahead to use this curved ruler side to draw it out. So guys, go ahead to do the same thing, and then at this down part, I'm going to extend it with just 1.5 inches. So for the 2 inches above, I made use of 2 inches, but for this downside, I'm extending it with 1.5 inch and then connected it back to the 2 inches just like this. And that is all for the drafting. I'll go ahead to cut it out. So guys, note that that part actually helps you to bring out the illusion hip line for this blouse. If you're a beginner, you have to really pay attention to where I am cutting so you won't make a mistake while cutting yours. Cutting, here is what I have. I went ahead to open it up, and then I'm going to just use my paper tape to tape it down from the down part to the underbust point. While taping it down, do not place it on each other, but let it touch each other. Here is it guys, after taping it down. As you can see, this is what I have. At this point, I'll go ahead to extend the waistline because we'll be working mostly with the waistline. Guys, if you watch up to this point, you're actually lucky because I forgot to mention this earlier. When taking your waist measurement, try to take out 2 inches from your actual waist measurement to snatch the waistline. That is what will make you have that cinch waistline, and it will make it fit properly just like you see on the picture. So guys, try to do that and thank me later. At At this point, we'll be taking out the curve at the down part. As you can see on the picture, the right side is for the bigger side and the left side is for the smaller part. You can choose to use any angle, it's still very okay. So guys, the first thing you do is to come down by 2 inches from the waistline, and then from the nipple point at this other side you go in with about 2.5 or 2 inches, just like you see me doing, and then use your curved ruler to connect it in this manner. The next thing you go ahead to do is to go up at the side with 2 inches or at least 1 inch. So I made use of 1 inch because this is not the full length of my top. And then go ahead to connect it like this to form the roundness at the down part, as you can see. For the smaller side, remember we actually added seam allowance of 1.5 inch before adding extra inches for the illusion hip line. So from your seam allowance, take at least 3 inches. You can take more than that, but let it be at least 3 inches or even 4 inches, and then mark it inwards, and that is where you're going to connect up towards the 2 inches below the waistline. Make sure to use your curved ruler, just like what I'm doing right now. At the side, just like you did to the other side, go up by at least 1 inch or 2 inches, and then use your curved ruler to connect it back towards your allowance point. That's all guys. I'll just go ahead to cut it out. This was what I had after drafting and cutting the patterns. I had to label them so it will be easy to cut out on the fabric. I'll go ahead to place them on my fabric and cut them out accordingly. Here is it guys. After cutting them out, as you can see, I added up to 1 inch at the down part. I added ½ inch at the shoulder, ½ inch round or the joining allowance, because I did not add my joining allowance when I took the nipple to nipple. I didn't bother to add any allowance at the side because I had already taken all my allowances already, as you can see. So make sure to arrange your patterns very well while cutting on the fabric. So guys, I'll be cutting the back directly on my fabric. The first thing you need to do is to determine the width of the back piece. So to do that, try to get your hip measurements divided by 4 plus at least 6 inches allowance or above. The first thing I did was to take the length of the top. I made sure to use the proper length. You know, we are cutting directly on the fabric, and I went ahead to draw my starting line, which is the shoulder line. So guys, for the length I made use of 25 inches. Remember, for the pattern paper of the front I actually made use of 24 inches because it wasn't up to 25 inches. But while cutting, I made sure to add the extra 1 inch. I went ahead to also draw out the line for the length of my top. I hope you guys can actually see the chalk. So the next thing I did was to mark out my zipper allowance of 1.5 inch at the center part, from the upside to the downside of the top. At the upper part from the zipper allowance, I went ahead to take my shoulder measurement divided by 2. I marked what I had and I came down by 1 inch for my shoulder slant. Next, I took my neck measurements, neck width of 3 inches and neck depth of 1 inch, and used my free hand to connect it just like so. The reason why I'm using 1 inch neck depth is because I'm still going to add allowance of ½ inch at the shoulder for the joining allowance. I went ahead to connect to form the shoulder slant, and then from the shoulder slant I measured my bust circumference divided by 6 plus 1.5 to form the chest line, and on the chest line I went ahead to mark my shoulder measurement divided by 2, and then connected the straight line to the shoulder slant to form my shoulder. At this point, I remember I needed to take the waist line. From the shoulder line I went ahead to mark my waist line. I went ahead to extend the chest line, and on the chest line I took my bust circumference divided by 4. I marked what I had and then proceeded to curve the armhole. On the waistline I went ahead to take my nipple to nipple measurement divided by 2. I also marked it on the length of the gown. So guys, I forgot to add additional ½ inch since I'm cutting directly on my fabric. I'm going to do that later. You have to add additional ½ inch if you are cutting directly on your fabric for joining allowance. So guys, in order to take the princess dart for the upper part, I came down with about 5 inches, marked what I had and connected it back. I didn't actually come down with half of my round armhole, because if I use half of my round armhole there will be a shortage. Since I'm cutting directly on my fabric, I had to come down with 5 inches. At this point I had to extend my chest line, and then I'll be coming down by 1 inch at the nipple to nipple point. Then I'm going to connect it back to the waistline. I had to remeasure the nipple to nipple in order to get the accurate measurement before connecting, and then I came in and out by ½ inch for the dart intake, and then connected it back to the 1 inch below the chest line. And then at the length of the top I went up with 2 inches. Then I connected it back to the waistline to form the dart intake. So guys, it was at this point that I noticed that I did not have my ½ inch for joining allowance, so I had to extend my nipple to nipple line and retake the dart again. So guys, like I said earlier, don't forget to add ½ inch to your nipple to nipple measurement divided by 2 while marking it. If you are cutting directly on your fabric, do not repeat the same mistake I made. So I'm just going to connect it back to the 5 inches like this to form our princess dart for the back. After connecting it, the next thing I'm going to be doing is to take out the dart around that part. So I'm going to be taking out just ½ inch at the down part of our armhole, just below the 5 inches. So the reason why I'm using just ½ inch is because I'm cutting directly on my fabric. So I went ahead to extend it with 1 inch and connected it back to the ½ inch below, and that's just it for the princess dart. And then I'm extending my bust measurement also with 1 inch before connecting it back. So guys, right now we'll be taking the normal round measurement. For the down part, I took my hip measurements divided by 4. I added 1 inch for the joining allowance since the dart has not reached the hip part. And then on the waist measurement, I took my waist circumference divided by 4. I added 1 inch for the dart, and I'm adding additional 1 inch for joining. And then I'll just go ahead to add 1 inch for the joining at the bust point before I'll go ahead to add my normal side seam allowance. I added 1½ inch allowance for my sewing allowance, and then added extra 2 inches for the exaggerated hip. But I'll advise you make use of just 1 inch. I think 2 inches was actually too much. I came up by 2 inches just like I did to the front, and then proceeded to add my sewing allowance at the waistline and the bust line. Then I went ahead to connect the lines together, and then I also went ahead to connect it from the waistline to the top length. But at the original top length, I'm going to be taking out ½ inch, and then I'll just be connecting it to the 2 inches above the top length and take out ½ inch at the original top length, just like we did to the front side, and connect it. Then I'm going to still come up by 1 inch just like I did to the front side. Then I'll go ahead to connect it. I'm just trying to have a curve also at the back side. I extended the waistline towards the zipper allowance part. I came in by ½ inch and connected it back to the neckline in this manner, just in a slanted form. I had to go up with about 2 inches before connecting it, just like this. This is to take out the zipper bulge so that there will be no zipper bulge. You can go ahead to add your extra ½ inch around the waistline in order to replace that allowance. Before cutting, I had to add additional ½ inch for my joining allowance when I'm turning it with my lining. And I also added ½ inch to the shoulder, and that is all. I went ahead to cut it all out. So guys, at this point I had gone up by about 1½ inch to just form this curve from the zipper allowance point. This is not actually compulsory, but if you wish to, you can go ahead to do the same thing and then extend it straight towards the zipper allowance like this. Before cutting out this part, I just went in with 1/2 inch at the waistline at the zipper allowance part. So I am taking my exact 1.5 inch zipper allowance and connecting it back. This is just to show you where our zip allowance is going to be and where our zip is going to pass. It's not going to be the formal line again. So that's all for the drafting and cutting of the back piece. Here is what it looks like when I went ahead to open it up. I'll proceed to cut out the linings at once for the back and the front. I'd gone ahead to draft and cut out the long sleeves pattern. This is at the actual length of the sleeves. I added extra 3 inches to my actual long sleeves length. I've done a lot of tutorial on how to cut these long sleeves. I'm going to drop one on my description box below. So the first thing I did was I went up with 1.5 inch, and this is because I'm going to be cutting it open to form the flip part. So at the center part, I went ahead to just cut it open, and I went ahead to open it up. I'm going to be placing it on my fabric to cut it out. At this point, I had to place it on fold, although the pattern paper was not on fold. So go ahead to take how wide you want your flip part to be. For mine, I wanted mine to be about 8.5 inches, so I had to mark it at that line. So I went ahead to first pin it up first so that it will not sway, and then I went ahead to just shift it towards the 8.5 inches point that I had marked before pinning it down. This is just to determine how wide you want the flip part to be. I proceeded to cut out the sleeves. Note I had already added all the sewing allowances to the sleeves at once. I had to measure the length of the sleeves that I desire before cutting it out. Go ahead to take the length of your sleeve. Note it's not the normal long sleeve. You're going to make it longer by at least 2 inches or 3 inches. So I went ahead to just connect the line like this and then cut it out. So guys, that's all for the sleeves. It's time for us to start our sewing. I'll try my best to be fast so this video would not be too long. So guys, first thing I did was to place them together. I had gone ahead to cut the linings. I made use of the same fabric to be the lining piece. I'm going to be interfacing the lining with an stay. I'm not going to interface on the main fabric, just the lining. I'll also interface the lining of the back also. So guys, the first thing I'm going to do now is to join the fabric on the princess dart part. Take note of where the downside connects so you won't start from the wrong side. So I'm going to be joining it from the downside upwards with my 1/2 inch allowance for joining, and I'm also going to join this other side too. I'll go ahead to do the same thing on the lining after interfacing it. For the back piece, I'll also go ahead to join it just like I'm going to do for the front. I place it together and I'll go ahead to join it on both sides. And for the back piece, I made use of a normal lining because the material was not enough. It was just 2 yards. So I'll go ahead to also interface on the lining of the back. So guys, here is it after joining the front piece. I proceeded to notch the joinings with my scissors. After that, I'll just go ahead to open up the seams and iron it very well with this breast ball or telos arm. I've done a tutorial on how I made this telos arm. If you're interested in watching it, I'll drop the link below so you go ahead to watch it. Here's the lining of the front. I had gone ahead to interface it with my stay and also join the princess dart part. I'll also go ahead to use my scissors to notch it and also use the telos arm to iron it out. For the back piece, I went ahead to also join the princess dart part, and I'm also going to use my scissors to notch round. I did the same thing to the linings after adding my stay. I also proceed to open the seams and iron them very well. Guys, here is the front piece after opening the seams and ironing it very well. As you can see, it's laying very flat and it's very beautiful. This is the lining piece. I've gone ahead to do the same thing. Next thing I'll proceed to do is to turn the neck as well as the down part. I'll be making use of aiming gum to turn them so it will look very neat. And I'll also proceed to turn in the side part at once. So guys, I'll also proceed to turn the back side. Also, I went ahead to place the lining on the material, facing it right sides to each other, and I'll go ahead to turn it in with 1/2 inch at the neck part, and I'm going to use my hemming gum. Also, I also proceed to turn the down part also using the hemming gum, and then I'm going to turn the side part as well as the zipper allowance. I'll do that for both sides and show you guys what I have. See it guys, see how it's looking neat. As you can see, I made use of the hemming gum, and that's why it's looking very neat. Try to make use of your hemming gum to turn the neck and the down part of your blouse, and thank me later. So this is the back piece. It's looking so beautiful. The next thing I'm going to do right away is to fix my zip, and then I'm going to be turning my shoulder. I'm going to turn the shoulder in. Just go ahead to attach it right side to each other, flip it over with the lining, and go ahead to join your shoulder with 1/2 inch. I'll do that to both sides, and then also fix my zip and show you guys what I have. At this point guys, I'll go ahead to work on the sleeves. I've gone ahead to cut the linings for both sleeves, and I'll also make use of this hemming gum to turn the down part. So I'll just go ahead and join it with 1/2 inch. Make sure to add the allowances while cutting. Here is it guys. After joining it, I went ahead to use my scissors to knot round because it's a curve. I'll just go ahead to open it up and iron it very well to make sure that the hemming gum is hidden. So guys, if you want to always achieve a very neat finishing, try to always iron your clothes while sewing. Here is it. The next thing you want to do is to flip it over and join it. Make sure to turn it in so you will have a very neat finishing also, and the joinings will be well hidden. So go ahead to join it based on your round sleeves. So guys, after joining and confirming your round sleeves, try to trim it off so it will not be bulgy inside, and then go ahead to notch at this part where the flake starts from. You're going to notch it in a little. Do the same thing to the lining, and go ahead to bring it out to the right side and iron it very well. Give it a really good press, and then go ahead to sew to attach the lining to the material around the armhole part. So guys, there is it. After joining the shoulder and fixing the zip, our blouse is looking so beautiful already. I went ahead to flip it over to close the side. As you can see, it aligns, the side aligns, the side of the front aligns to the side of the back. I'll just go ahead to close it based on my allowance, and then when I stopped here around the waist measurements, I went in a little. I didn't go in that much, but if you do not want to have a very pronounced exaggerated hip line, just go ahead to follow your allowance. For mine, this was what I did. I did not really follow my side seam allowance. I just made it to be like this, and then after sewing, I'll go ahead to notch at that waistline as well as the downside. I'll do that and show you guys what I have. I'll do that for both sides and show you guys how I went about with it. Here are the sleeves guys. I've gone ahead to iron it out very well. They are looking so beautiful, and I tried to make it my size at once while sewing it in. So guys, as you can see, our top is beautiful and is almost ready. Here is the exaggerated part. I'm going to show you guys inside so you see how it looks like and what I did. This is it. As you can see, I had gone ahead to put in my scissors to notch, especially at the waist part and then round this part, and then I went ahead to open up the seams and iron it very well. You need to give it a really good press at that point, and then also iron the joinings at the right side, and then keep it like this and give it a really good press. That was just what I did. As you can see, this is the inner part of the other side. I made sure to put in my scissors very well, so that means you need to confirm your waist measurements very well before doing all this, so you to not be a problem. So guys, the last thing and the final thing I'm going to do is to join the sleeves, the armhole to the armhole. Make sure that you confirmed your armhole before closing the sleeves, so it will not be an issue. So I'll go ahead to join it with 1/2 inch. I'm going to make sure that the joining part of the sleeves aligns with the joining part of the blouse, and the center part aligns with the shoulder. So guys, I'll proceed to join both sides of the camera and show you guys the final look of this blouse. Here is the final look of the blouse after joining the sleeves. This is it. As you can see, our blouse is looking very beautiful. So the last thing I'm going to do before wearing this blouse is to fix the beads. So I'll go ahead to do that off the camera also. Thank you so much guys for watching up till the end. I really appreciate you. Please do well to hit the subscribe button, like, drop a comment, and also turn on your notification bell so that whenever I drop another video you'll be notified. So here is the final look of this blouse after beading it. If you have any question, do not hesitate to drop it on the comment section and I will reply.